What is going on, my sweet little fascists? We're going to start today off with a story about a boy, and that boy is this boy. You may have noticed on my channel I just uploaded a video of myself. So I went down to the Occupy ICE Louisville protest in the city I live in, Louisville, and I went down there with kind of the half the intention to troll, kind of meme it up a little bit, and half the intention to actually see, kind of what these people thought and what was going on down there. Because I didn't know. They could have been really nice people. I didn't know. So I get down there, and I immediately see my buddy, who's a police officer, doing his job, overseeing the situation, making sure everybody's following rules. So I chatted up with him for a bit, and they start filming me before I even have a chance to do anything, because they see me talking to a police officer, right? So then I go over there, and they're immediately hostile. They think that I'm like informing for the police or gathering information for the cops or something like that. So anyway, they see me. They all see me. And I film for a little bit and then leave. The other night, I went to meet some friends, some coworkers at a bar. So I sit down, and one of my good friends, she gets up to use the restroom, and she's gone for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, where the hell did she go? And she gets back, and she's like, I got to tell you something. And she says a friend of hers who's in from out of town came up to her, pulled her aside, and he said to her, look, I don't know anything about this because I'm from out of town, and I don't have any firsthand information, but I've had 4 different people from the bar come up to me and say that the guy that you're sitting with is a Nazi, referring to me being the Nazi. They had my Facebook pulled up. They were like sharing my Facebook and going through it and looking at my pictures. And he said, I wanted to let you know that if anything violent happens, then you know why. Essentially, like a kind of a off secondhand threat of some kind. And apparently it was people from the ICE protest that had seen me and labeled me a Nazi. So now I'm a living meme of a Nazi. I don't, I guess I expected that at some point by putting out some of the content I do, but it's just absurd. It's like the absurdity that I point out and fight against, they're just they're doubling down and giving it right back to me. It's really insane. But beyond that, today we're going to talk about pedophiles, an American classic. It's pedolicious, baby. That's really gross. What if we found out that pedophiles were actually like delicious, like for some reason they were delicious, and then we could just kill them and feed the world with their bodies? And that's 2 birds with 1 stone right there, dude. That's all it takes. That would be a perfect world, but we're not living in a perfect world. We're living in a fucking crazy world, man. Really, like things just get a hair more absurd every day. When you think they've gone, they've reached the limit, it's like it just pushes the edge one more time and makes you honestly question the very fabric of reality on some days. So to preface this, about a year ago now, I made a video called The Normalization of Pedophilia. And it was essentially about how the logic the left uses to justify transgender people is going to be converted. Well, not even converted, just like placed, like repositioned to justify pedophilia, because it doesn't take any sort of adjustments to justify it. Argument number 1 was that we say that this is an unchangeable, immutable part of you that you identify with or want to become or are, according to them, the other sex, the other gender. And that's not changeable. And they could easily use that to justify, look, pedophilia is not changeable either. And then it went on further to say that we're allowing these kids to change their genitals, to change children, to change how they want to present themselves to the world sexually, visibly. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we also allow them to decide who they want to sleep with. If we're allowing them to make these massive concessions concerning their sexuality at very young ages, from 14, even down to like 11 and maybe even single digits. I've heard quite a few different stories. But logic only follows that we're going to allow them to choose who they want to have sex with eventually. And when I made that video, I even felt like I was reaching. I felt like this is the most sensationalist video I'm ever going to make. It's a little out there, but I connected some dots that maybe didn't deserve connecting. And, we'll see where it goes. And here we are a year later. And there's been a few different things leading up to this. But here we are a year later. And TEDx puts out a video that is pedophilia is a natural sexual orientation. Now, this appeared on their YouTube, I believe, for a very short time. It got a whole bunch of backlash. They removed it, said, oh, it wasn't really affiliated with us. We're looking into who this speaker was, tried to muddy the waters a little bit, and then erase it from the internet. Like, get rid of it. Sorry. Any trace that it ever existed. And right now, I believe it is on YouTube, and it has quite a number of views. But we're going to go through it. We're going to listen to it. We're going to talk about it. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, right off the bat.
Let me tell you about.
Right off the bat, she looks drugged out, or maybe she's just nervous, but she looks like somebody's mind controlling her, like this headset. Someone's sending some signals into her head. She's just like dazed out. It's fucking weird.
Let me tell you about Jonas. Jonas is 19 years old.
Okay, let's keep in mind Jonas is 19 years old. Let's keep that in mind.
He studies law in Munich. In his spare time, he likes to play soccer. Jonas has a secret which he thinks he cannot share with anyone, not even with his best friend or with his parents. He's just too afraid of anger, rejection, and repulsion. Jonas knows that he has to suppress his sexual drive for his entire life.
Okay, no, he doesn't. Dude's 19. What the fuck did you know about your entire life when you were 19? What kind of retarded shit did you believe when you were 19? Did you feel when you were 19? Okay? Doesn't know anything. Also, this initial beginning is immediately victimizing this guy, this Jonas guy. I understand it's also humanizing him, which is fair, but it's immediately putting him adding him as a rung on the victimhood ladder, which grows every day. We get a new rung all the time, but that's immediately how it's starting out, is a victimhood narrative.
And he also knows that there will never be a loving and fulfilling partnership that he can enter.
Again, doesn't know that. That's a crazy thing to say about someone who's 19.
Because Jonas is a pedophile.
Sucks for Jonas.
He's only attracted to female children between the ages of 6 and 12 years.
6 and 12. You're only attracted to that. What happens? What happens is 5? Oh, five's too young, dude. No, that's gross. And what happens at 13? Is it too much you hit puberty probably at that point, and you start looking like a fucking adult, and suddenly you're not appealing anymore. Like, where are these boundaries coming from? 5, 6 to 12. How do you?
Yes. But since he's aware of the consequences for the children, he has never given in to his sexual drive.
Okay, good for him.
What is pedophilia? And what is it not? In the ICD-10, the International Classification System for Illnesses, pedophilia is coded as the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. It is listed under the sexual disorders. Whether the persistent occurrence of sexual thoughts and feelings for pre-adolescent children.
I love this. I love this quick shot right here. This guy, like, oh, fucking, they know I'm a pedophile. They know.
Children have been acted upon or not is not relevant to the diagnosis. Like every other sexual orientation.
And there it is. Here's where we're going into immediately. And that's what this video is all about. It's just like every other sexual orientation. We'll come back to that.
Pedophilia can have different characteristics. For example, it can be heterosexual, it can be homosexual, bisexual. Some pedophiles are exclusively attracted to children. Others are not exclusively attracted to children, but they're also sexually interested in adults. But their main sexual interest lies within children. Only if this main sexual interest is given, we talk about pedophilia. The vast majority of all pedophiles are men, about 99%. Within the male population.
Okay, 99% are males. That has to, if that statistic is accurate, that has to speak to something. That is a heaping portion, almost all of them. There has to be some driving factor behind that.
1 to 2% are considered to be pedophiles. This translates to about 60 million people worldwide.
Wild. She's like falling apart, dude.
This is as much as the population of Italy.
Okay, 60 million. 60 million out of 7.5, approaching 8 billion?
Of South Africa. Therefore, pedophilia is not an irrelevant phenomenon we can't simply ignore. Chances every one of you knows at least one pedophile are higher than that you don't know anyone.
All your friends are pedos.
We haven't found out yet why pedophilia occurs.
Okay, you haven't found out yet why it occurs.
There are biological, social, and psychological factors to it.
Okay, biological, social, and psychological. Then how is it a natural sexual orientation? That doesn't make any sense. If there are these factors that go into it, like most behaviors, or most urges, then how can you just label it a natural sexual orientation? You just debunked your own argument.
It occurs unrelated to social economical status and unrelated to educational level. So generally speaking, anyone could be born a pedophile. Okay,
you just said, okay, we're going to break this down. First of all, she just said it had all these other factors besides biological. So anyone could be born one. And here's where we get into it. We have not even proven that homosexuality happens prenatally. We have not proven. There are inconclusive studies on both sides, but we have no actual facts saying, okay, this is, yes, homosexuality occurs in the womb, and it has nothing to do with how you were raised. There is evidence showing that it's familial, especially when you either have a poor relationship with the father or the father's not even present. There's evidence for that. But we don't even have definitive proof that, the born this way, that's the most successful meme of all time. I mean, it was a cultural paradigm shift. But this isn't to say that we treat gay people differently. And just like Brett Weinstein talks about, like metaphorical truth and literal truth, and if you behave in such a way, even if it's not literally true, you behave in such a way that you kind of pretend like it's true, it's metaphorically true, then you get a better outcome. And perhaps that's what we've decided to do is like, look, it works better if we just let these people live their lives and behave as if, this is how they've been since we can't fucking trace this. That's fine. But now you're attempting to apply that to pedophilia. And I'm not fucking having it. We're not going to have it. And the other crazy thing about this is the left, which, I'm only saying the left. I don't know what her political affiliation is, but these arguments are being borrowed from the left in the very least. But the left pushes this. They deny any other argument of biological essentialism or biological determinism. I'm not sure what the term is. But any differences you find between men and women, or between races, or anything like that, that's all sociocultural. That's all a construct. All these differences between people, any inequality, that's all a social construct. But the one thing that is ingrained in you, unchangeable, immutable, we're gonna use biological essentialism for this, is your sexuality, is the fact that you're a man but you feel like a woman, so you're gonna cut your penis off and then you're gonna date women because you're a lesbian now. That is immutable, unchangeable, has nothing to do with society or culture or how you were raised. It's like this selective use of knowledge or logic that they just apply willy-nilly to fit, because they're not concerned with consistency or accuracy. What they're concerned with is their ideological narrative, pushing it forward. And I don't even know if they know why anymore.
It is crucial to understand the difference between pedophilia and child sexual abuse, which is illegal and must always be. Pedophilia is...
Thanks for throwing that olive branch out there to us. Oh, it's child sexual abuse should always be illegal. We'll come back.
Only the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children.
Okay, and this is where there's some, it's kind of telling, at least to me. She's talking about, okay, we should always condemn child sexual abuse. That's what she calls it throughout the whole thing, is child sexual abuse, which abuse in any form we know is wrong. You can't abuse, shouldn't abuse. But she's still seeking to normalize pedophilia as a natural sexual desire, urge, orientation. And what that leaves to me is a middle ground that she never addresses, which is the eventual potential of consensual relationships between adolescents and adults, which is what I addressed in my pedophilia video. And I think that's where we're going, because she'll condemn abuse, because obviously abuse is wrong. Doing something to someone when they don't want you to do it is wrong. But she never fills in this gray area between, what's the point of confirming and affirming that pedophilia is a natural sexual orientation unless that is going to lead somewhere or open another door? I think the gray area in there is exactly what I said, eventual consensual relationships between children and adults. Like I said, it's not discussed in this, but that's just my gut feeling.
The difference between child sexual abuse and pedophilia becomes very obvious when we look at scientific studies. Think about it for yourself. What do you think? What percentage of child molesters are pedophiles? Have a guess. Is it 20%, 40, 60, maybe even 80%?
She's high on something.
In fact, scientific studies indicate that only 20 to 30% of all child molesters are pedophiles.
Okay. I don't know the exact math on this. I was actually going to figure it out before this live stream. But she said 60 million is the estimate worldwide for pedophiles. And so out of that 60 million, they commit 30% of child sexual abuse. That's a pretty fucking high number, because 60 million is a pretty damn small number when you compare it to the entire world. But committing 30% of a crime, if 60 million people of one genre or one classification committed 30% of a crime worldwide, that would not be we could not stand for that. That is imbalanced. Her own facts, her own statistics are speaking ill of her argument.
The vast majority of perpetrators are not pedophiles, but they're sexually interested in adults. Children can easily become victims of child sexual abuse because of their loyalty and because of ease of access.
Ease of access. That makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that terminology.
For example, a stepfather might abuse a stepdaughter because he feels anger or jealousy towards her mother. Not every pedophile abuses children, and not everyone who abuses children is a pedophile. Differentiating between these two groups is essential.
Okay.
Let me be very clear here. Abusing children is wrong without any doubt. But a pedophile who doesn't abuse children has done nothing wrong. I want to quickly summarize where we are at the moment. According to current research, pedophilia is an unchangeable sexual orientation.
Okay. What research are you talking about? How come you have nothing on that giant screen behind you? How come you're not showing like a graph or maybe some quotes or anything at all? You're not backing up your statements with anything. And current research, this also leads me to another point, which is Kenneth Zucker, who was he was a Canadian, he ran a clinic in Canada, and he was like the leading doctor on gender dysphoria in children. He had the leading clinic on it, and he'd worked for decades, and had hundreds of cases of this. And what he discovered was that by the time they grow up, they either grow out of it, of the dysphoria, or figure out that they're gay. That's the majority of it. And so large part of it is, waiting it out, waiting through puberty, waiting till your brain stops developing. Or maybe practicing things that aren't anywhere near as extreme as feeding your kids hormone blockers or hormones or puberty blockers or having surgery. And this is a huge body of research that he had. And they eventually came in and shut him down and fired him because politics got involved. And now he refused to practice the gender affirmative therapy, and they shut him down because of politics. And they were saying that his treatment methods were akin to like conversion therapy on gay people, which I don't even know exactly what conversion therapy entailed. I don't know if it was like a physical sort of like shock treatment type of thing, or if it was just, I don't know. But so we have a huge body of evidence throughout the years. He was the leading psychologist, I believe, on this. But the current research, which is extremely short term and isn't backed up by any very, very few studies, and the studies that back it up, or the studies that you can look at, are inconclusive. That's the recent research. So that's what if you want to talk about recent research, that's not going to mean the best. It's not going to mean the largest body. It's not going to mean long term. So the recent research that she's talking about could easily also be infected with this political movement. And I think that exact same sort of thing happened with homosexuality, is there were bodies of evidence of different kinds. And again, this isn't to relate to say that homosexuality is the same as transgender and transgender is the same as pedophilia. It's just to say that this argument, this logic, this movement has slowly been moved from one, I don't even know how to say it. They're moving the goalposts continually. if you like sports analogies there. They're moving the goalposts continually. And it's so crazy to think that this is where we are right now, that it's pedophilia that's the next one. Who would have thought that NAMBLA would be on the verge of becoming mainstream? Is that not wild? There's an old documentary I think everyone should watch. It's called Chicken Hawk. It's on YouTube. I think it's called Chicken Hawk, Men Who Love Boys or something like that. And it's a documentary of NAMBLA, and they follow around different pedophiles and talk to them and document NAMBLA and everything. And it's eye-opening, it's terrifying, it's unsettling, but it should be watched. But like how they're on the verge of finally busting into the mainstream, it's unreal.
An unchangeable sexual orientation, just like, for example, heterosexuality.
Like, fuck that. Fuck you. Okay, what you're attempting to do there is butt pedophilia right up against heterosexuality to make it seem as normal as possible. You're telling me pedophilia, the attraction to 6-year-olds, is no different than heterosexuality. This thing that 99.9% of the animal kingdom follows. It has evolutionary and biological origins and implications, and it is universal as far as we know. That is exactly the same as someone who wants to fuck 6-year-olds. The most I would go is that it's a demented, twisted version of it. But how dare you make a statement like that? That it's the same, it's no different than heterosexuality. Something that dates back millions and millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. Oh, well, I mean, it's farther back than that. I mean, it's trees, dude. There's male and female fucking trees. Okay? What?
No one chooses to be a pedophile. No one can cease being one.
You don't know that? You don't know you can't cease being one?
The difference between pedophilia and other sexual orientations is that living out this sexual orientation will end in a disaster.
A disaster.
So let's think about Jonas again.
I don't want to.
How can we help him not to cause such a disaster? How can we help him not to live out his sexual urges?
Why is it up to us? Why is it up to me? Is he just going to spontaneously touch a boy unless I wait, he was attracted to girls, that's right. Sorry. Is he going to spontaneously touch a girl unless I do something about it? Is that what you're telling me?
How can we prevent child sexual abuse? In fact, scientific studies indicate that one of the strongest predictors for child sexual abuse committed by pedophiles is social isolation. People who can't tell anyone that they're pedophiles logically won't get any help. For example, they can't tell their friends that they can't go to the beach because children in swimsuits might be there as well.
Dude, I'm attracted to women. I go to the beach, there's women in swimsuits. I don't just rub up against them and go grab them while they're laying there. Why is it like these people have no control over themselves? That you can't go because there's kids everywhere, dude. You can't leave your house. What do you, I can go to a beach without touching a woman. Does that make me an anomaly? I wouldn't think so. So how come these people can't also just not touch kids at the beach?
They can't get support for situations they might not control entirely. And
Not control entirely. Why are we outsourcing responsibility? What are we doing?
they can never be completely frank with someone else. We can make a difference for Jonas. We, as a society, can be there for him. At the moment, we live in a world that already excludes pedophiles because of their preference alone.
Dude, what are we approaching? Like, now the pedophiles are the victims, and that's their sexual orientation. So now I'm the bigot for not wanting my kids around a pedophile? Like, I don't want my kids around the guy who doesn't want his kids around pedophiles, you bigot. Like, that's where this is going. Now it's on me to
Someone who's lonely and excluded from society has little to lose and is at much higher risk to commit a crime.
There's only a 30% chance that he's going to rub your son's penis. There's only a 30% chance. Why don't you come on, take the chance, man? You asshole. What are you, Republican? Take the chance. He seems like a good enough guy.
Like, for example, child sexual abuse. We can make Jonas feel that he stays a valuable member of our society, although he's a pedophile. Right now, most of us feel discomfort when we think about this scenario. And most of us feel discomfort when we think about pedophiles.
The backs of their head look uncomfortable.
But just like pedophiles, we are not responsible for our feelings.
That's a really crazy thing to say. You're not responsible for your feelings. Yeah, you kind of are. Like, I understand people have urges or desires, but like, you curb those things. You are in control of that shit. Like, or you should be. You should learn how to be. You should be able to inform yourself properly. You should be able to discipline yourself properly to where you can curb and control your emotions. I don't understand the extent of the urges that people would feel around kids. Like, again, I could be around really attractive women, but at no point am I going to feel like I just can't help but reach out and grab them. But why? How come, again, is this removal of responsibility? You don't have any control over how you feel. That's just a crazy statement. You should strive to.
We do not choose them, but we are responsible for our actions.
That's okay. Good. Another olive branch. Thank you. You're responsible for your actions.
And we must make a decision. It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about pedophiles and to treat them with the same respect we treat other people with.
Bro, I don't know. I just don't know about that. Look, if you really have those urges, if you're really feeling that way, and you're troubled, there's no question that this shit should be addressed. It should be researched. We should figure this out. And these are human beings. And if you really truly have these urges, there's probably something wrong. Especially, you're 19. Like, your brain is still developing. You might have gone through some traumatic shit. Yes, they deserve, like, consideration. And we should not, we shouldn't isolate anyone. We need to know everything we can possibly know about this. And people should have help. But it's that whole idea of making it a natural sexual orientation that is just complete nonsense, complete bullshit. Yes, we should help people. Yes, we should make. But if someone tells me they're a pedophile or they're attracted to kids, I'm not going to put my kid around them. Is that disrespect? I don't think so. I think that's just behaving fucking rationally.
We should accept that pedophiles are people who have not chosen their sexuality and who, unlike most of us, will never be able to live it out freely if they want to lead an upright life. We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference, a thought, a feeling, and not an act.
again, fair enough. You can't judge someone for what passes through their head. I have some pretty unsavory things go through my head on a daily, but that's fair enough. I'll give you that one.
We should differentiate between child sexual abuse and pedophilia. We shouldn't increase the suffering of pedophiles by excluding them, by blaming and mocking them. By doing that, we increase their isolation and we increase the chance of child sexual abuse.
Again, it's like, I get it. It's a society. We are a society, and we must behave in a manner that, on an individual level, that is most beneficial to our society as a whole, because you are everyone else. You're yourself, but then you think everyone else, that's all society, but they think the same thing about you. So there's a cohesion that must occur. And I don't even remember where I was going with this thought, but
only if they make themselves recognizable, because they're not afraid of punishment, of anger and rejection. Can we bet?
But what do you consider rejection? You're never gonna tell me, you're never gonna convince me to fucking leave my kid around a pedophile. Is that rejection? Is that treating someone differently than I would treat? Of course it is, and people should be treated differently depending on who they are. That could be totally misconstrued, but fuck you.
The causes of pedophilia, and we can improve their treatment. We can help them accept their sexuality and help them learn to refrain from acting on their sexual urges which cause harm to children. We can encourage them never to commit child sexual abuse. We can help them refrain from entering dangerous situations they might not control entirely.
See, I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that? A dangerous situation that they don't control entirely? Like walking into a Chuck E. Cheese? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know what you mean. Like, why do these people have such little control? Like, it's like putting it on everyone else to atone for this person or to assist in this person's like rehabilitation. I don't know what you mean when you say something that you don't control, a dangerous situation you might not control.
And we can prescribe medication. This approach has already been successful.
What medication? What does the medication do? Like, does it kill your libido? It's like you're trying to pass it as a natural sexual orientation, but then also giving people medication for it. I don't know that something that requires medication in that manner is I'm sorry. I'm like losing. There's like I feel like my brain's being crushed by a vice. It's like, what am I even watching right now? It's all over the place.
In the last 10 years, more than 9,500 people have received help in a prevention network called Kein Täter werden, which means don't offend in English, at university hospitals in Germany. The last survey shows that 98% have never committed child sexual abuse. Unfortunately, this program is not gonna eradicate child sexual abuse.
I mean, dude, I'm glad there's a fucking place. It's good. That is good that there's a place that these people can go get help. But then, like, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say help? I just all these ways to prevent them from living out this fantasy, or because clearly you don't mean like cure them or remove it.
But it is the first step in the right direction. Pedophiles who have received treatment have a better understanding of who they can turn to in order to prevent abuse before it happens. Most of you might ask themselves now, why is she telling us that?
No.
5 years ago, I first heard about Jonas's life. Prior to that, I have never really thought about pedophilia, and I had just adapted the prevalent societal view about it without...
Okay, so the kid was 14 when you heard about his story? $14.
never really questioning it. I felt anger and disgust about pedophiles. My perspective has been completely changed by hearing Jonas's story, hearing about his cruel fate, and understanding the difference between child sexual abuse and pedophilia.
His cruel fate. He's 19.
As a medical student with a background in psychology, I feel it as my responsibility to help others overcome and escape wrong stigmatization and to have a positive impact on our future society. By changing our view about pedophilia as a society and by offering them support and therapy, we can help millions of people to live better lives, and we can effectively reduce child sexual abuse. No one is responsible for their feelings.
What?
But everyone is responsible for their actions.
What?
I thank you very much.
Good job. Look at these people. They're like, fuck that. Fuck you. This guy, I think, top middle, that dude's pedo for sure. He loved it. No one's responsible for their feelings, man. More outsourcing of responsibility. Here's the thing about this. And I realized this, I watched this the other day for the first time. This is the typical switcheroo, wolf in sheep's clothing type of deal, where this whole argument is wrapped in a spongy angel cake layer of compassion, which is one of the left's favorite words, and one of their favorite ways to sneak in their agenda. All of it's wrapped in compassion with a core, with a rotten core. They use this to slip in the back door. Hey, back door of the argument and of the culture, to slip it in, when there's a bill, a really long bill, and they add in something that has nothing to do with it to try and get it passed through. It's like they're trying to pass it through on this slippery slope that's been created, that's lubricated by compassion and equity and diversity. So now add pedophilia into that. So do you have do you employ any pedophiles, sir? Have you met your pedophilia quota? We're gonna hire we'll add that to the diversity equity enforcement task force to make sure you get a pedophile hired in here. It's, like I said, it's candy coated, man. Candy coated in compassion. This is going to move us on to discussing James Gunn, who was recently fired from Disney for some tweets that were considered to be pedophilic in nature, or at least they were jokes about touching kids, about I don't even know. Let's see if we can find some of his tweets. Here we go. I fucked the shit out of little pussy boy next to me. Feels like the Hardy Boys and the Mystery of What. It feels like when Uncle Bernie fists me. The tree blows back and gives the kid a blowjob. These very vague sort of, they're not even witty or clever. Like, for you to say and try and pass these off as jokes it's a pretty like bad. I mean, that's the best argument you could come up with. But like, for you to think of this and then take the time to type it and tweet it, like, you must have thought it was really good. You know what I mean? You must have thought it was really clever or something. But these are not even witty or anything. Bigger question is, why the fuck does a 51-year-old man, why is he dressing like this? Why does he do that? Maybe because he wants to fuck kids. But here's the thing, man. I will defend comedy to the ends of the earth. Comedy is the last bastion of free speech. It is a stage show where anything and everything could and should be said. Even like the darkest corners of our reality, we can shine the light of comedy on it and have a laugh about the most miserable parts of humanity in our existence. And everything should be open. Everything. So you say something like this in jest, it's in jest. I'm not going to speak ill of you for making a joke, even if they are just barely jokes, even if they're just barely any, there's no real humor to them at all. But the most interesting thing about this, and I don't think he's a pedophile. I'm not ready to say, look, this dude's a pedophile. I'm not ready to call him that. That would be reactionary and crazy. But the thing is that the mass number of people who have rushed in to defend him, right? And obviously comparing it to Roseanne's situation, where Roseanne made a joke and was immediately condemned. And that's what this article discusses. It says, we must separate jokes from attacks against, LGBT communities and minority communities. But for you to pretend like Roseanne's tweet was an actual legitimate attack on black people, that it was deeply racist, is completely disingenuous, and you fucking know it is. Okay? If you were to look, let's look at this photograph. If you look at what is it, Valerie Jarrett? Is that her name? Yeah. If you look at Valerie Jarrett, she looks extremely similar to this character from Planet of the Apes. Look at the orange, look at the skin tone, look at the shitty haircut, and obviously the face they're making. It has nothing to do with the fact that she's black, which, looking at her, who the hell would be able to tell that she's black? Not me. I mean, I think Rachel Dolezal is blacker than she is. But the point is, for you to pretend like that was a legitimate, like she was attacking the black community and calling her a monkey because she's black, you're wrong. Okay? You're wrong. And you know that you're wrong. But in this case, it's everyone rushing in to say, oh, look, he had every right. He had every right to make these jokes. Let's see. They say something like that in here. That, like, never mind his absolute right. His absolute right to make these jokes. Of course he has an absolute right to make those jokes. He does. Disney also has an absolute right to let go whoever the fuck they want. Okay? And you have an absolute responsibility to apply your logic and your reasoning across the board. Okay? It's not selective. You're not going to be able to say, this person can say this, but this person can't. They're both public Hollywood figures. They should be held to the same standard. And that's what's happening now, is that the left has now created such a culture of outrage they've built these weapons that they're ready to fire off at anyone. You say the wrong thing online, you say one wrong word, and they're firing at you and just ending you. And they think that this is progress. What's happened is that the other side has taken those weapons, or at least said, two can play at that game. And they're now pointing those weapons and are using that environment that they've created against them. And they're not having it. They're not going to have it because it's their people who are now becoming the victims of this absurd outrage culture. This other article, Disney, in firing James Gunn, Disney hurts all of Hollywood. Oh, poor Hollywood. Oh, those, they suffer such hardships. How could they? And it makes a fair enough point that, good art comes from people with an edge. But first of all, Hollywood is where artists go to die. Okay? Hollywood is where you go to create mass market assembly line bullshit. And if anyone, is to make as much money as you can. Okay, to pretend like he's some kind of great artist is silly. And then you have someone like, the very few people that are in Hollywood, like Darren Aronofsky, who go and really go off the rails and make something like Mother, which is brilliant and beautiful, and it gets called dumb by everybody. Well, it's because you're fucking dumb, okay? It's because you're used to James Gunn level filmmaking, okay? And it also makes the point that people change. Hold on. Before I read that. That people change. We now all basically have our entire lives documented. Or there could be an encyclopedia for every single person in the United States and across the world almost now. We could all have our own individual, the history of so-and-so, and where it contains all your tweets and all your Instagram photos and everything on Facebook, and it's like a biography taken from your online content. And that people change. Of course you're going to say some shit at some point. If there's a camera on you all the time, you're going to eventually say some shit that's, you don't want anyone to hear. But obviously they're not giving that, obviously they didn't give that leeway to Donald Trump. You know what I mean? When he said that thing and it was like immediate condemnation, they didn't give this same leeway to him. Presidents, they need a little edge. That's what they need. You need a little edge to your president. They're not going to give him that same leeway. And of course they didn't give Roseanne that. She was fucking fired within minutes. So again, selective application of logic. But I don't know what Roseanne Barr is, the kind of person who dresses up in Hitler costumes and threatens to bake Jews in an oven. She is the kind of person who fires off racist tweets and conspiracy theories. Dresses up as Hitler and threatens to bake Jews in an oven. She's a fucking comic. She is an actual comic. She's been a comic for years. She's one of the most influential comics of all time. Okay? I was just watching Rat Race again with my daughter, and there's a part in there where they drive Hitler's car and he accidentally gets like some makeup, some lipstick on him. He looks like Hitler and he burns his mouth, and he's talking to a bunch of World War II vets, and it sounds like he's Hitler. And I'm like, they can never fucking make this today. And it's like, okay, so you draw the line at, you say Hitler or Roseanne can't do these things, but she's an actual comic. James Gunn is not a comic. They're just waiting to burn anyone they can at the stake. But then when they get got, they aren't having it. But something I did want to say is that, it's kind of fun to see their own creation weaponized against them. But the anti-PC people should not become PC, even though, you can make pedophilia jokes. You can make fucking pedophilia jokes. It's okay. The anti-PC people should not become PC themselves. And also, just like the video we just watched, there's a legitimate movement, a legitimate push to normalize pedophilia as a sexual orientation, to push it into the mainstream. There is a legitimate operation happening for that. And to take down people who made dickheaded tweets 10 years ago or whatever and feel like that's progress on your end because someone took down one of your sides, it's just this volley. But what it's doing is taking away attention from the actual movement, the real movement that is pushing for the normalization of pedophilia. It's taking the spotlight off of that, and instead of being like, look, because I don't remember seeing that video. It wasn't reported by any major news outlets. I only just saw it recently on the Daily Wire. They did a really good job of hiding that video, and it's been taken down over and over again from websites. I keep finding a link, and then that link is dead the next day. But it's taking the attention away from that, and instead it's shining the spotlight on some people who make really bad jokes. Because another one I think was Michael Ian Black. His were like way grosser. And Michael Ian Black's another one that's like, why did anyone ever give you a show? You know what I mean? Like you're the same as I can't think of the woman who held the severed Trump head. I don't know why I can't think of her name at this point, but they're like on the same tier, right? And he made a bunch of far grosser tweets. And again, you can't just call these people pedophiles because they make these tweets or because they do these things. We should seek out the actual pedophiles, because there's always that talk of, there's a pedophile ring in Hollywood. It's like, that's the other open secret other than the Weinstein thing. It's like, oh, there's like all these child actresses have been touched. They're all getting fucked. From that guy who worked for Nickelodeon that they finally got rid of. All the stuff having to do with him. Supposedly, I don't know. There's plenty of stuff that he has a foot fetish and that he ruined Amanda Bynes. She went completely off her rocker. That's always been talked about. So maybe these are the people on the perimeter you could pick off to finally get a fucking shot through to the middle. Pop the main guy, and then all hell will break loose. Everything will fall apart. So it could be that, but I think it's taking attention away from. And part of it's just trolling. Part of it's just memeing. And there's always going to be a part of me that loves that. But there's a legitimate push. MAPS is another one. Minor attracted person is another anagram they're using instead of pedophile to try and, make it sound less gutturally offensive and disgusting. But the thing is that we're in a really weird kind of spot right now. I don't want to see free speech get attacked on the other side, from the other side, just because they want to put a dent in Hollywood. And I want to see the real shit exposed. I think that's it. I think that's it for me. I think I've said all I want to say. Thanks, everybody. If anyone's watching, or if anyone will watch this, again, I want to try and do some more of these and just talk about whatever. I'd love to have people conversing in a chat or something like that. Hey, Crispy. What's up, man? I just saw your stuff. I actually didn't have, I don't know if you're still here. I didn't have the chat pulled up. Thanks for watching. Yeah, it's pretty unsettling that they're attempting to apply this same logic. But then, what's next? Where's the bar going to move next? I don't know how much lower. You'd have to dig to move the bar down any further than pedophilia. That's it for me. I want to do one on, I want to talk about psychedelics soon. Again, I got a couple scripts that I'm working on. Ryuki, 22, what's going on? Peace to you. Thanks for tuning in. I'm actually reaching the end of this, but I love all of you. Thanks for watching. Keep fighting the good fight. Be safe out there. And I'll see you all in the comments.